Welcome to Pankinen Financial Perspective with Ashton Pankinen from Pankinen Financial Group. Planning for your financial future means navigating challenges like market volatility, inflation, and retirement income. Pankinen Financial Perspective is here to help by addressing common financial concerns, sharing valuable strategies, and exploring ways you can work toward your financial goals. Now let's get started with Pankinen Financial Perspective.
Hello, and welcome to Pankinen Financial Perspective. My name is Ashton Pankinen from Pankinen Financial Group. If you'd like more information about what you're hearing during our show today, give us a call at 952-873-2703 or visit us online at pankinenfinancial.com. That's PANKONIN financial.com. And while at my website, click on the radio page, check out our past shows, and subscribe to our program on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon Music. Also, click the link at the top of the page to get our retirement guide or sign up for our newsletter. One of the most common questions I get from clients is, am I ready to retire? And to answer it, I sit down with them and walk through their entire financial strategy. Sometimes clients get the answer they want, and sometimes they get the answer that disappoints them, though that's usually only temporarily. With that in mind, on today's show, we're going to discuss some potential signs that we're not quite ready to retire. But before we unravel that question, let me introduce my co-host, Tony Shore, who better not be ready to retire yet because we need him on this show.
I don't know. I think you could handle it, Ashton, but I have no plans to retire. As long as my voice holds out. I mean, I plan on working until probably 70 if my voice holds out. I'm fine with it. I love what I do, that's for sure. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, if this is work, what you and I are doing here each week on the show, call me crazy, but that's not work. That's not work.
We'll cover that too. If you like it, keep working. So.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, obviously a lot of people want to retire. Maybe they have a more taxing job or are ready to get out. But there are probably some signs you're not ready to retire. I think the way to find out is meet with a financial services professional like yourself. But let's get into it. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, one of the signs that you're not ready for retirement is if you're having trouble covering your bills currently.
Sure.
If you're struggling to get by on paycheck to paycheck today, that's not going to change in retirement. Typically, we need about 75% of your current pre-retirement income in retirement to make a comfortable lifestyle. Not many people can go from having $100,000 a year income down to $25,000 a year in retirement. Sometimes they talk like, hey, we're not going to spend as much in retirement. But In reality, you want to maintain that lifestyle that you've been living for the past 30 years working. And so we want to make sure we can maintain that comfortable lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has goals for their own retirement and everybody's situation is different, but you do want to maintain a comfortable lifestyle in retirement. So, you got to make sure you have all your ducks in a row so you're going to be able to do that, right?
Yeah. And there are some expenses that'll go away or decrease when you do retire, but they're usually filled in with other things like, hey, I'm not going to have to commute to work anymore. So we're going to save that gas money, the wear and tear on the vehicle. If depending on the type of job, maybe I'm not going to have to buy as many dress clothes or, dry clean my clothes, those types of things. But a lot of those are replaced with other expenses in retirement. Now you have more free time. You may not be commuting, but maybe you still want to travel. And so now you're spending a little more money on travel, whether that be with your vehicle or flying places. And so it's important factors to consider when you're currently struggling to pay bills. It's not going to change much in retirement either, as far as the income needs.
Well, yeah. I mean, if it's hard for you to pay your bills while you're still working, it's not going to be any easier to pay them, when you're retired. And that's common sense.
Yeah.
But sometimes we need to hear these things and look at that and say, oh, I want to retire. I better get my ducks in a row here and come up with a plan to get there. Work with a financial professional. I think that's important.
Yeah. Well, and one of those things we look at too is the debt. Hopefully we've got most of our debt taken care of by the time we retire.
Sure.
There's still some options out there for good debt is what I consider kind of gray area for debt is anything with a 5% interest rate. And if you're under that 5% interest rate, sometimes I classify that as good debt for an individual to keep. So if you may still have your mortgage when you go into retirement, but if you're paying a 3% interest rate on that mortgage, it makes it a little more palatable to keep in retirement because hopefully we're going to get that 5 to 7% rate of return inside your portfolio. So now we've got some arbitrage there where we're gaining, again, let's say we get 7% and you're paying 3% on your mortgage. Hopefully we're netting that 4% difference there.
Yeah, there you go. And that's debt is going to be a big one. I imagine you don't want too big of a debt going into retirement, if any. Now, there's good debt and bad debt, though. I mean, you're not saying that somebody has to have their whole mortgage paid off by the time they retire, right?
Correct. I've got some clients that, are able to get paid off beforehand, which is nice. But for everybody's situation is a little different. And it doesn't always make sense to get that mortgage paid off ahead of time, especially again when you have that low rate and towards the end you don't have much principal left, and so then you're really paying mostly principal and very little interest on that.
Yeah, you've paid a lot of the interest down already, or if not all. And so deciding what debt to pay down before retirement is yet another huge reason to meet with somebody like yourself, a financial services professional, Ashton, to look at that and say, hey, you're paying 3%. Like we have a 3% mortgage or 2.9.
Yeah, that's great.
My wife and I. So why not use the bank's money? That's good debt because we're using the bank's money, and by now we're just paying off principal and not paying interest. So
for sure.
It would not be wise for us before we retire to take money out of our retirement savings to pay off the mortgage. You'd never advise that, right? I mean, in most cases,
every situation is a little different. And the other part of it too is then, instead of paying extra, maybe we can fund that Roth IRA or, put a little more in the 401k.
Sure.
To kind of hit that retirement goal or bump up those savings. So those first couple of years, we've got a bucket of savings to spend that money for the first couple of years of retirement there.
Yeah, makes sense. So what's next?
Yeah, we want to also plan for some of those unexpected expenses, some of those larger unexpected, and maybe they're not that unexpected. Like, hey, my windows and siding are 30 years old on my house or 40 years old on my house. That might be a big expense that be coming up. And ideally, if we can take care of that before retirement, when we're still having our income, our salary coming in to cover some of those costs, it's important to do that. I have had some clients who, hey, my vehicle's 10, 15 years old. I want to buy another vehicle before I retire. So that way, hopefully I'm good for another 10 years in retirement with that vehicle. And so just making sure we're planning for those future expenses, whether they're large ticket items or maybe those unexpected expenses of, hey, my furnace went out. And again, not that we know when that's going to happen, but if our furnace is 25 years old, we know that it might be coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, you kind of have an idea. I mean, once something's over 25 years old or 30 years old, you better be thinking about, hey, what happens when I do have to replace that, right?
Yeah,
you better
exactly
have a plan and having a plan in place again can save you a lot of money and headache in the long run. And you've said this before, Ashton, those unexpected expenses like driveway repair, they don't care if you're retired though or not. The expenses continue in retirement. These expenses continue in retirement, don't they?
They do. And a lot of times we try and look at like prior 3 years or so expenses to get an idea of what those expenses are going to be in retirement for you too, because we look at somebody's situation. Let's say we look at their 2024 expenses. And they say, oh, well, that doesn't really count because we had XYZ happen. Well, if you look back at 23, you probably had another XYZ, whatever that expense is, come up and, increase that annual expense need. Because it's pretty easy to budget for those monthly expenses, those utilities that are going to happen every month, vehicle insurance, homeowners insurance, taxes. it's easy to see those on a month-to-month basis. It's some of those one-offs where, hey, we did have to replace the water heater. We did take this trip, and those types of things. And so it's nice to look at kind of not just the prior year's budget or expenses, but 2-3 years worth of expenses to get a real good idea on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a big thing. I mean, when my wife and I first started getting serious about this, probably, again, hindsight's 2020, wish we'd done it a lot sooner.
For sure.
But we didn't have an emergency fund. I mean, we had some savings, but when we heard, hey, you need 6 months to a year worth of income in just an emergency fund, we're like, whoa. That's not possible. We can never do that. But we started, and we're well on our way. And you just have to be disciplined and pretend you never had the money. It just automatically goes into this account from our paycheck, and then, if it never hits our checking account, we're good. Yeah.
And that's why, like, saving through the 401k, pre-tax or Roth, either one. Pre-tax or after tax, but you don't see it hit your checking account, and so it's a lot easier to save that way.
It
most
is
of the time as well.
Yeah, it is. If you never had it, you're not going to miss it. That's
exactly
the thing. You mentioned in another show, when you get a raise, put it all into your retirement account. Just increase your retirement 401k amount, or the amount you put in your IRA by that money, because if you never had it, you're not going to miss it, right?
Exactly. And then another sign, Tony, that maybe we need to sit down and look a little closer at a plan for retirement is if you don't understand your Social Security, adequately understand what your Social Security benefit's going to be, because that's going to be a big portion of your income for most people in retirement. So you can go to ssa.gov. You can look up what your Social Security statement says for full retirement age. And again, a lot of people don't understand how much it reduces at age 62. Some people just say, I'm turning 62, I'm turning on that Social Security. But those payments versus full retirement age may be decreased by as much as 30% at age 62. And so that's a pretty big discount or lesser amount, I guess, versus taking it at full retirement age. And for most people now, we're getting the baby boomers are coming to, almost all of them are coming to age here. If you're born in 1960 or later, currently the full retirement age is going to be age 67. Yeah, for you.
You and I are 67 right now.
Yeah. So, currently, right? I don't think I'll be there. I think it'll move to like 70 for me, Tony. But we'll see.
I might be grandfathered in on that. I hope.
Grandfathered in. Yeah.
I hope. It's
I'm guessing it'll move for me, but we'll see.
I mean, but it's true. Claiming Social Security at 62 reduces your monthly payments by 30% compared to waiting until your full retirement age, or 67 for most people out there. So that's something, I'm glad you mentioned that, and you've mentioned it on a previous show because it's so important. Social Security is the foundation of retirement income planning, because no matter how much money you make or have saved up, it starts with Social Security. It's a known quantity that you'll get each month, and you want to maximize that. I don't care if you're rich or poor, or where you're at, or somewhere in the middle. You want to maximize your Social Security and get as much out of it as you can, right?
For sure. And also looking at, hey, I'm going to retire at 62. Well, working those extra 3 to 5 years to get to that full retirement age not only gives you extra income, but then it increases those higher earning years. And so that Social Security amount increases. So the amount of Social Security will increase by that 30%, but also because you have more higher earning years to get credits for, that value is going to go up on that way as well.
So. Yeah, I think that's huge. So before we go on, I know you have that Social Security maximization report you can run for people. So based on their personal situation, their retirement amount at ssa.gov, what they're going to get at their full retirement age, you can plug that in and it'll give them their sweet spot. Maybe it is earlier. Maybe for them, they do need to take it at 62 or 63 or 65. For a lot of people, I know it'll be 67, maybe 70. Everybody's situation is different, but it'll give you your own sweet spot, and talk about spousal strategies for you if you're married. So how can our listeners get that run? How can they set up that no charge, no obligation consultation with you and your team there, Ashton?
Yeah, the best way, Tony, is to give our office a call. That number is 952-873-2703. Again, that's 952-873-2703. Or you can visit our website, pankinonfinancial.com. That's PANKONIN financial.com. And on there, we've got our guides for retirement at the top. There's a link at the top of the page. You can click and get signed up for our guides or a newsletter, or, listen to some of our other podcasts or radio shows that we've been doing as well.
Sure. Well, and we're talking about signs that indicate you might not be ready to retire yet. And you talked about if you struggle to pay your current bills, if you're carrying a large amount of debt, if you don't have a plan for big future expenses, and if you're not adequately understanding when to file for Social Security, these might be things you need to take care of before retirement. What's next on the agenda?
Yeah, so we talk about the kind of overall plan. We want to look at monthly cash flow as well. If you don't have a plan for where that monthly cash flow is coming from, you might not be ready. And again, that's why within those last 5-10 years before retirement, we really want to sit down, put together that plan, work together with a financial advisor, financial service professional to put together that long-term plan to help combat inflation, because hopefully we've got a 30-year retirement ahead of us.
Yeah.
Because we want to have that long and, again, hopefully healthy retirement for you. And so we want to make sure we have that long-term plan as well as that monthly income plan to understand, how we can keep up with inflation. Inflation, I call it the silent killer. It's 3 to 4% every year. It's kind of erodes away at your savings if you're not getting a high enough interest rate there. And so it's important to make sure you have that good long-term financial strategy to help combat some of that inflation. And again, we sit down and when we discuss a plan, it's built into the plan as well. We factor in a 3 or 4% inflation rate every year. And so, that $100,000 a year in income isn't what it used to be when you're looking 20 years down the road. And so you want to make sure you have that long-term plan in place as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Inflation's a big one. And you're right. It's the silent killer. And, you said 3 to 4% at least, right?
Yeah, that's the average. And obviously we've had a couple of years here more recently where we've had a little higher inflation.
Sure.
Than that as well.
Yeah. And hopefully it'll stay down in the 3% range, right? It'd be nice if it was 2 or 3, right? But we know some things are never that low. Like healthcare rises at much more than 2 or 3 or 4% a year. That's unfortunate.
I'm a little ways away from this as well, but staring at college tuition, that rises quicker than the inflation rate.
No doubt.
As well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the full tuition price for the school my daughter went to, but now she got a scholarship. A full scholarship, so there was no tuition, but without any type of scholarship, it was $65,000 a year.
Oh, geez, yeah,
St. Thomas, great school, and she got a great scholarship. She earned it though. She had to work for that scholarship and an academic scholarship too. That was to get a full ride with the academic program was pretty good. She's a good writer. So the 3 essays they made her write to get in, she had to write 3 essays and and be interviewed like twice and take part in this group project. And they narrowed it down from like 200 applicants down to the 5 or whatever it was. It's
that's awesome.
Yeah.
We can't all count on that.
No. Yeah. We feel very fortunate. We have 3 kids, and that was 1 out of the 3. So we're paying, Ken. Don't worry. They just couldn't go to that school. The other 2. But you got to save, and certain things like healthcare go up. You have to have that long-term financial plan in place.
Well, and one of the risks that aren't really talked about either is the risk of being too conservative. And that's where, again, inflation comes into play is, if you're getting an 8% rate of return, you're actually getting 5% because, if you factor in the cost of living adjustments and, inflation. And so it's more like a 5% rate of return because of inflation. Well, if you put your money in a savings account that's getting 3%, well, again, you're not gaining anything there.
No.
And so there is a risk to being too conservative in a portfolio as well. But I also understand as we age and get closer to that retirement goal, a lot of times we do pull back the reins a little bit. We don't want to be in all equities or all stocks.
Got to minimize the risk as we get older a little bit, typically.
Typically, yeah. And again, it's all individualized as well, customized. I've got 80
Depends on how much you have.
Right? I've got some 80-year-old clients that are still very aggressive in their portfolio. And then I've got some younger investors that want to be conservative, and I'm, maybe talk them up a little bit into take a little more risk to get that better overall long-term return inside of the portfolio there.
Yeah, it all depends on everybody's time horizon is different, right? That's kind of what you're talking about there is a time horizon.
Yeah, so part of it factors in is time horizon and then own individual risk tolerance on how we build a portfolio.
And you're talking about opportunity loss, right?
Correct.
Or opportunity cost. So what's the cost of having your money if you put it all in a bank? If it's in a savings account that's earning 0.1%, 0.01% or 0.03%, which is nothing.
Yeah,
right? It's almost as good as nothing. It's pennies. And then the opportunity cost of that is huge or loss, because if it were in the market and, if it was in the S&P and you just let it ride even, you want it actively managed, but boy, you're going to do better over long term. I mean,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, hopefully that 8-9% average return of equities, sometimes even that double digits. And so, we look at that as, again, like you said, opportunity cost is what could have we been doing with this money to get better returns in it. And so it is important to not be too conservative, but we still want to diversify inside of that portfolio and again, adjust towards your risk and time horizon.
Sure.
Diversification doesn't eliminate all risk in a portfolio, but it does help reduce risk in a portfolio.
Yeah.
And sometimes we diversify that, Tony, between stocks and bonds. Sometimes it's international investments and domestic, small cap, large cap, mid cap.
Yeah. And so sometimes there is a way to get to protect against any downside or loss. You can get principal protection and still at least keep up with inflation. So you might want to have, as you get older, you might want to have some money in that versus all in the market, right?
Correct. Yeah, a lot of times my clients are in that 60-40 portfolio, or we had talked about on another show, 60-20-20, where maybe 20% of that's in some principal protection and then 20% in some bonds. And those both help in down markets to absorb some of those downturns in the market. Although typically that's how it works. 2022, it didn't exactly happen that way for the bonds. The bonds and stocks both lost in 2022, but that was the first time. And I think it was 52 years that had happened. But again, we want to make sure we don't just retire and then stick it all under a mattress, because that opportunity cost is huge.
Well, that's the worst. Yeah. I mean, and that's basically what putting it in just a checking account or a savings account will do, is that's basically putting it under the mattress. I mean, you've got, some insurance, but of theft, but other than that, you're not going to be earning anything, and you're going to be losing money to inflation. And, if inflation goes up, there you go.
Yep, exactly. And not only do we want it diversified, Tony, but I think we ran short on time. This was another thing I was going to talk about too, that's in today's show, is we want to make sure we rebalance our portfolio.
Oh, yeah.
It's important to rebalance. Fidelity, I think, was the one that did a study. And if you rebalance quarterly, you get almost a 1% to 2% better return on your portfolio, while also reducing volatility in the portfolio. So, there's a couple options. You can either automatically rebalance, which a lot of my portfolios do. But we also get together in person and sit down and review and do these rebalancings when needed. The reason it's so important, Tony, is it forces you to sell high and buy low, which is what every investor wants to do. But it's human emotion to want to sell low and buy high. When things are going good, they want to get into it. When things are going bad, they want to sell out of it. And so again, getting together on a regular basis to rebalance, make sure our goals haven't changed. It really helps with that volatility and overall performance of the portfolio.
There you go. And yeah, and so obviously rebalancing is important. And some of our listeners are like, I don't know, I've got a 401k or an IRA. Meet with a financial services professional, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's what you're here for. Look it over. You can run reports, see where they're at, see how balanced it is, see if you have stocks that are canceling each other out. You might not be as well diversified as you think you are. Don't you find when people first come into you and you show them, run these reports and say, okay, here's where your money is at, here's the stocks you're at, you usually find that they're doubling up and they don't even realize it?
Yeah, a lot of times that can happen. And then, especially in the 401ks where they end up getting some employee stock options, all of a sudden they're really heavily weighted in their company stock. And that can cause some issues for, if everybody wants to think the company they work for is going to be around forever and do great. But again, it's a high concentration in one investment. And so we want to make sure we get that diversified as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And there you go. I think that's so important. So what else do we need to know here today?
Yeah. So we had talked a little bit about this, Tony, how you're never going to retire because you love your job so much. And so,
well, I'll be I think I'll never retire, but you know what they say, man plans and God laughs. You never know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But no, if you do truly enjoy your job, and you love having that purpose, you don't have to retire. But again, it's something that you want to be able to make that decision. You want to be financially well off to where you can choose to continue to work if you want to, or maybe you ease into it by working part-time, kind of test the waters of retirement, by working part-time. And that way you can try and figure out what you're going to do to fill those 40 hours a week that you have been going to work those other 40 hours a week for the rest of for the last 30 years. And now what are you going to do for the rest of your life for those 40 hours?
That's good. Well, hey, we're almost out of time. So really quick here before we go, Ashton, let our listeners know it's so great. You love to hear from them, talk to them, answer any questions, and you're offering that no charge, no obligation consultation. How can they get a hold of you to set that up?
Yeah, give us a call here at the office, 952-873-2703. Again, that's 952-873-2703, or visit us online at pankinenfinancial.com. That's PANKONIN financial.com.
All right. And that does it for today's episode of the Pankinen Financial Perspective with our host, Ashton Pankinen.
Thank you for joining us for Pankinen Financial Perspective. Don't head into retirement without a plan for both your finances and your health. For more information, contact Ashton Pankinen at Pankinen Financial Group at 952-873-2703 or visit PankinenFinancialGroup.com. Join us again soon for another episode of Pankinen Financial Perspective. Advisory services are offered by Ashton Pankinen LLC DBA Pankinen Financial Group, an investment advisor in the state of Minnesota.
All matters discussed during the show are for informational purposes only. Each individual situation may vary, and the opinions expressed here may not apply to everyone. Materials presented are believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations can be made as to its accuracy. All ideas and information should be discussed in detail with one of our qualified representatives prior to implementation. We are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration, the Federal Medicare Program, or any other government agency. Calling this number will direct you to a licensed sales agent.